Alright, hey, Slaanesh Devotee here. I've got a game from the Black Crusade, but it's not a game that I'm playing. This is the first time I've managed to really get a spectated, commentated game in, and we've got Cato versus the Swarmlord using the Malceptor as the synapse. We've got Dan Napolitano. Sorry, Dan. I hope I got that close. And Miserable Toad. A guy from Auckland who, because his time zone is relatively close to mine, I was able to record this. This is a voiceover coming back to it, unfortunately, because the girls were having dinner and so they were screaming in the background. But actually it kind of pays off because unfortunately Miserable Toad's connection wasn't that great, so he gets disconnected a few times, and this will let me edit them out quite conveniently. Let's see, Miserable Toad mulliganed for his Swarmlord deck. I've played this Swarmlord deck last Monday and it beat me quite handily. And Dan plays the Crypt of St. Camilla. Now there's an interesting card. We don't get to see that very often. Ecclesiarchy too. That's quite cool. So it's 4 cost, and it lets you put in a 4 cost or lower Space Marine unit at a blue planet. And that got me to check the planet array, and we had 4 out of 5 planets are blue after the first planet. So that's pretty useful right there for Dan. That's pretty impressive. Unfortunately, I was experimenting with this being a spectator and commentating aspect, so I wasn't able to get the view of the cards. I've tried to do it once before and it caused some weird crash to happen, so I'm not sure if that was a mistake at the time or if it's something to do with me trying to be a spectator that can see people's cards or what. But I wasn't able to do it this time, so I haven't got the ability to commentate on what I think might be a good move and what options they have. But Crypt of St. Camilla, really interesting beginning there. Alright, let's see what comes next. Turns out to be a Termagant Horde. Solid unit, gives you the token at the beginning of every combat round, which is quite nice. So you can get quite a few Termagants building up there. Taurus, I think Miserable Toad is hoping to get a decent, combat presence on Taurus. Being the Swarmlord, having a Synapse unit out already, it's pretty likely that he's going to be outnumbering the Space Marines, and it'd be a shame to let them get that early command bonus from Taurus, I imagine. I imagine that's kind of what he's thinking at this point. And Dan meets it with Blood Angels Veterans. That brings him down to 0 resources. So he's going to be able to pop in a Space Marine unit on one of the other planets, probably. Presumably he's got one in those 5 cards that are left. I'm pretty sure he probably will. But the Blood Angels on Planet 1, that's pretty solid. They completely ignore the Termagant Horde hitting. They completely ignore a token hitting until they're exhausted, which means they'll have killed something by then. You know, that's probably just about the perfect thing to have put on that planet after that, I imagine, out of that 3 cost lot. Those Blood Angels Veterans, they're just so solid. So solid. There's not much else you can say about them. Pretty much a perfect Space Marine unit, just about, really. You know, just resilient and hits hard and just boom. Good solid unit. And out comes Swarm Guard. So now they are another Hive Mind unit that gives a bonus HP to their tokens, to the Termagant tokens that are at that planet. They're a reasonable enough unit, but I feel like maybe his mulligan wasn't perfect. That's not an ideal unit to be throwing out there. But then the Crypt of St. Camilla drops in the Salamander's Flamers, which is probably a perfect unit for right now. And then there was a bit of a disconnect issue from Miserable Toad, one of our first. But I mean, those Flamers, area effect, hit the tokens, and potentially if that Swarm Guard's causing an issue, see if you can ready them. I mean, it's pretty intense. I'm quite curious to see what tricks are in this Space Marine deck. Has he got a bunch of readying effects for the Flamers, for the Blood Angels? Has he got a lot of 4-cost units? I mean, what other 4-cost units might he have put in there? What would he be going for? Or has he just got all the really good 3-costers? It's really interesting that he's taken the crypt, you know. I mean, it's not that usual you see. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does with it. Okay, first commit of the game. Miserable Toad spreads down the line, and Cato heads in to, I guess, to get the extra resource from killing off the Termagant Horde. I mean, or to guarantee that he wins that planet, maybe. He's counting on being able to get the bonus out of Taurus, maybe. Because he's missing out on, I suppose, only 3-2 command versus the Swarmlord there. I wonder if it would have been worth Swarmlord shutting down the area of the command of the Flamers, the Salamanders. Maybe? I don't know. George usually beats me, so I imagine he's probably made the right move there. Okay. No command actions, straight into the battle, moving along at a clip here. So, battle at Taurus. And Miserable Toad is not going to generate a Termagant token. Oh, says Cato, I don't get my extra money. Oh, what a shame. You can't force me to feed you. Yeah, exactly. You can't make me give you free money, which this would effectively be. Alright, so the vets swing at the Horde, and they die. I think he was tossing up whether or not to use one shield, keep them alive sort of thing, but Cato would have dealt with them before they got a chance to retreat, so just give them the money, don't waste a card, and move on, basically. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 Space Marines versus 5 Tyranids. So he gets his trigger, and he decides to go for, let's see, Survey says cards, which is interesting. He must be relying on the crypt to provide his ability to pay for his various units, and then save the money. Well, I suppose Cato, obviously, is a money engine of his own, so maybe that's what he's using there between Cato and the crypt. That means his money is basically just used for the crypt itself and events that he needs to play, pretty much. And then that just means he can do, you know, he can get Space Marine units out and go for cards much safer. So he Swarmlord fires Aatrox into HQ, which means he does manage to ping those Blood Angels veterans, which is quite nice, being able to get them. Maybe that was part of his maths on the Termagant Horde as well, knowing that it would leave the Blood Angels ready, exhausted and primed for Aatrox Prime. Alright, over we go, second round. Only a few units out on either side, quite a solid one at Planet 1. And with the crypt threatening to put something down at all 5 planets now, so Miserable Toad really needs some sort of a stall to see what Dan's going to pull out. And it's another Termagant Horde. I wouldn't exactly call that a stall, you know, like that's a reasonable investment. You know, the Termagant Horde's a darn useful card. It's probably worth the investment in general, but really what we were looking for was something a bit cheaper to just wait and see what Dan was going to do, I would imagine. The Horde's going further down the line, not worth facing that Salamander. Possibly hoping he can get once or twice get a battle at that planet before it becomes Planet 1, get a couple of Termagant tokens onto the planet before it gets there. Dan drops an Honoured Librarian onto Planet 1, and is there any other way of saying, don't come to Karnath? I mean, I don't know what Miserable Toad has in that hand, but I've got to assume that it can't deal with those 2 Space Marine units. And it turns out he's got a Termagant Sentry in his hand, which is good. But I feel like he should have put that down before the Termagant Horde. just to see if the Termagant Horde was even necessary, maybe save his resources potentially. I don't know what he's got in his hand, but I feel like those should have probably been the other way around. And obviously there was another glitch there. There'll be quite a few more, I'm sorry, before the end of the game. Hopefully it doesn't interfere too much. And then we've got a scout, and then we've got a regeneration, and I'm like, I feel like the regeneration could have been put, well, no, the Horde has to be there first to get the regeneration, doesn't it? He might have only put it there because the scout was there even, not sure. Scout's a decent move there. It's only a 1 hammer unit, the Horde, and he's invested 4 resources and 2 cards into it. But unless there's a major fight, I guess, the sentry's kind of neutralised it. The scout's kind of neutralised it already. And that's all Dan's got to show for this round. Got a bit of a beefy token over there, and another regeneration, which goes on the Swarm Guard. Again, could that have gone before the Sentry or the Termagant Horde even? I might be, rear seat driving here. Maybe there's a different way to do it. I just feel like I might have paid to see how that crypt was gonna turn out. All right, let's see where they commit. And after a little disconnection there, Tyrannid Skull, Synapse Skull, both showing 1, and Miserable Toad goes elsewhere. So I think we've had that octagon glitch where the disconnect sort of resets the dial, unfortunately. I think those are both places that we could kind of have expected. The Synapse trying to fill in the command gap, Swarmlord putting some tokens down where they're actually going to potentially build up and be useful, rather than Planet 2 where the token on Planet 1 would have completely useless. Dan's just checking his dial, which is working properly. And that prompted me to check Miserable Toad's Tyrannid dials, which aren't. But we'll just move past that fairly quickly. So Cato didn't go to Planet 1, which there's no real reason for him to have gone to Planet 1. That's fair. A Swarmlord could have gone there to steal the command, potentially, but all he could have done is retreated. And if he did have the initiative, so all he could have done is retreated. So it still would have given away the planet trigger, potentially. But Cato going to that planet, it was kind of clear that that was probably where the Synapse was going to go. So worth going to in that sense. Sentry, Swarmlord, yeah. Not many other choices there. So Miserable Toad gets 4 cards and 1 resource out of that. It's a lot of cards on the field here. There's not a lot of resources. Suddenly Cato's ability and the Crypt of St. Camilla are really causing a serious advantage for Cato there. I mean, the Swarmlord can create his own units, which is also good, but I don't think it compares to the power of those 3-cost Space Marine units, Alright, so all command seems to be sorted. Moving on to combat, I believe. Here we go. Targets Karnath. Yep, here we are. No actions. Just win it. Just take it. And what's Dan going to do with that? So what have we got? We've got Eloith, so he can pick himself another card. She's got 10 already, but another card's never a bad idea. Aatrox, which it looks like he might be choosing, I think. So shoot some stuff. That's cool. Or Yavin. I don't think he's going to want to put things in. Swarmlord's got 9 cards. He's bound to have 1 or 2 decent hive mind things that'll boost his tokens up in there. And what's that one down the end? Is that a Ridial, I think? Oh, that's not necessarily too bad. That's potentially a goer. But it looks like he chose Aatrox to fire at Yavin, clear things out a bit before Swarmlord has a chance to trigger Aatrox against Cato, I guess. So, damage to the Keening Malceptor and Backlash to shield a token? Yeah. Looks like Backlash is shielding a token. Now that's quite a dramatic choice. I mean, Backlash, that's huge. That could have been something you used with the Synapse. That could be protecting his Hive Mind if he gets some out. That's really interesting. Why would you use Backlash to shield a Termagant token? Seems very dramatic. So Dan captures Karnath. That's got him to 2 reds already. So that's pretty dangerous terrain. Only 1 blue, but so far every other planet is blue. We get to Aatrox, and the Termagant Horde generates another Termagant token. Okay, after a massive disconnect that came and went a couple of times, that'll have been quite a big jump for you. So what happened during the disconnect and was difficult to keep track of was Miserable Toad played Clogged with Corpses, which didn't show up in his discard, which we're just clearing up here. He's going to bring it out, put it back in, and he discarded the 4 Termagant tokens that he had and destroyed the Crypt of St. Camilla. So that really is a huge swing against Dan there. That's going to cause him some serious problems. He has managed to save up 9 resources so far, which is obviously really good. Swarmlord takes out that scout. So the 9 resources is obviously going to keep him going, and he's got a couple of decent big units out of the crypt. But I mean, he spent 4 on it, and he's only really 3 up on that. And then if you count the card as being worth 2 resources, which a lot of people sort of do, then he's only kind of made 1 resource gain in a sense, sort of. So Aatrox, Swarmlord triggers Aatrox, manages to get another ping onto that Blood Angels Veteran, which is nice, another ping onto Cato, which is nice. So that's a huge benefit to him so far. Cato swings at the Malceptor. And Miserable Toad throws on the damage. And then we get a Fury of Sicarius. Rough stuff there. That's just, oh, you hate to see it. And you've always got to be careful of it around Cato. It's scary. Dan does double check to make sure actually had he jumped the gun with that. But I find that on Octagon most of the time you don't put the damage on if you're going to shield. I know that technically that's not actually correct, and sometimes it can be really helpful to put the damage on first. But I think on Octagon it pays to mention I might shield or something, just to clarify that I'm just considering about this damage, just to be safe, especially when you're playing someone like Cato or maybe a Dark Eldar player who might have Clivex, something like that. Cato decides not to trigger Yvonne, which is probably a good idea. So we've had a massive swing this round. The Synapse is gone, but the Crypt is gone. It's big stuff. It'll be interesting to see how the next round goes. The Space Marines have no units on the planets, and we've got a few bits and pieces. Oh, no, he does have a unit on the planet. He didn't mean to retreat that Blood Angel, which Miserable Toad says, yeah, that's fine. I would too. It seems pretty obvious that actually he should have stayed there. But in the meantime, who's going first? Cato's going first, and what's he going to do to counter all these units? Let's see, if he goes to planet 1, it'll give him a second tech icon, but still all 5 planets are blue. So is it worth it? I mean, maybe, because at least you'd have, that would mean any planet's win condition in that regard. But the 3 planets after that are win conditions for Dan anyway. He's got 2 red already, and then there's Planet 2, Planet 3, and Planet 4 all have red. So he's got so many options right now. Miserable Toad's probably in a bit of a tough position, unfortunately. Another bit of a disconnect. For a moment in the conversation box, you would have seen, oh wow, another crypt of St. Camilla. Wow. I suppose if it's the cornerstone of your strategy, you're going to have another one in there somewhere, but oh wow. As Miserable Toad says, he's not impressed. I was going to say Dan, for a moment, goes to give himself the resource that he should have claimed when the Synapse unit was destroyed by the Fury of Sicarius, but then he goes back and says, actually no, it's the start of a new round, I forgot to trigger it at the time, and he's already said that he wants the Blood Angel to be there when he kind of looked like he might have retreated at, and so he's very polite and decides not to press that issue at all and takes the resource back off. It's very, very good of him, really, to play on the assume the worst of yourself sort of side of things, for the benefit of the opponent. So another crypt. I mean, he had the resources spare to do it because he'd been saving the resources. It's just horrible. All the 5 remaining planets are all blue, so that means 6 out of the 7 planets that have been fought over were blue. I imagine playing the Crypt of St. Camilla, you cannot possibly have gotten a more perfect lineup than that. That's horrifying. That's dreadful stuff. So what have we got here? We've got 2 Tyranid units with big butts and regeneration, and we've got a sentry down the line. And we've got the Warlord, so we've got a grand total of 4. And then we've got a Space Marine with 3 decent units. So we're literally the same, playing the same. Swarmlord has not managed to get much of a snowball going. Spikers providing ranged, although at cost. They're really handy for when you've got more tokens built up, I think, and here it looks to me like he's getting a bit desperate to put something as a bit of a block onto planet 2, because that's going to be Dan's win condition, Cato's win condition. If anyone goes there this turn, obviously we'll get a token that can swing it ranged, but I don't know that we'll get many tokens out of it, unfortunately, because you get one at the beginning of the round, but then you're not likely to get any more until, I mean, if nobody goes there, it might be only on planet 1 that one even appears, you know what I mean? And see this, after the unit enters play, I was surprised. I was checking it right then. I didn't realise that the Shrine of St. Camilla would trigger that. It's an enters play. I was assuming it would be when deployed. So that is actually quite dramatic. The Chosen are worth 3, if I remember correctly, and that's just really dangerous. You can crypt them in. So I think that might be part of why Dan chose Cato to work like this with the more expensive signature unit. Miserable Toad goes for the regeneration. I'm thinking that might be a bit of a stall at this point, because I feel like why not let it get a bit more damage before you heal it back up, you know what I mean? But again, it may be that he had nothing else to do. It may be that he just wanted to be as fully set up as possible, because it's quite likely, I think, that Cato is going to take his forces to this planet. And yeah, Miserable Toad's just going to want to slow them down as much as he possibly can before it gets any further. So possibly he's going to go to Yavin, throw another token onto Aatrox. I'm thinking that seems plausible. He might go to planet 1, because that would still get a token onto Aatrox, but seems less than perfect for Swarmlord's ability, just putting out the 1 instead of 2 tokens. Dan pays for another Chosen right down the end to trigger. 2 trigger? Is that 2 trigger or no trigger? Is that no trigger? 2. Where are we at? So I went to type in, sorry, not hitting reaction. Okay, so he's not using the reaction for that, which says to me he is putting out a 3-cost signature unit with decent enough combat stats, with an ability to mess with combat maths, and he's put it out simply for command, because he's just got that much stuff, he's able to do it. Toad plays a Hellgaunt onto planet 1. Obviously would have been much nicer if that could have been getting the benefit of some infestation. He was using the, oh my goodness, Exterminatus on planet 2. He loses his Chosen that came in for free, and all of that setup gone. Dan just, the amount of resources he's saved up to, and still been able to put out some different things, and just, I'm not sure what Toad can do about that. I was going to say he had the Malscepter. I can't even remember if it's called a Malscepter. I keep calling it the Malscepter. and he's got the Hellgord, so clearly he's got some Infest going on in here, but he's lost the Synapse, unfortunately. He hasn't been able to pull any Infest, or hasn't wanted to use any of his Infest. Exterminatus on planet 2 before sending in a couple of decent sized Space Marine units to it. So he still is going to Yavin, but he doesn't get the benefit of the ranged +2 +2 HP tokens on that planet. Rough. He does get 3 command, which hits him 3 cards and just the 1 resource. So he's keeping pace with Dan for resources and cards, but between Cato's extra resources after combats, between the crypt throwing on a card onto the table every turn, he spent 8 resources and 2 cards on crypts, and he's had, what has he had? A Flamer Squad, a Librarian, and a Chosen out of it, so that's 10 resources and 3 cards back. So he's got a card and 2 resources up. Yeah, that seems alright. Seems alright. Commands done. We're on to combat. Miserable Toad's looking for a card for Elowith because he's won his first planet of the game. And he takes it on, and I can't tell you what it is because I couldn't figure out how to set up Octagon so I can see their cards. Sorry. It would have been nice to say, he's picked this and tell you why, but I'll work on that for future commentated games, see what I can do. Alright, so Dan goes to Aatrox. There's nothing there. Toad's got nothing to show for it at this point. And we ping Swarmlord. Seems fine. Facing a Blood Angels vet, if the vet can get a swing in, that's probably going to be useful because they hit pretty roughly, pretty tough, beastie things, Terminator things that they are. So Swarmlord goes for him. He's hoping to trigger Yavin. I'm pretty sure he's going to have some decent hive mind unit, and we've got an Iron Halo, which just completely blunts the effect of that. That's tough. That's frustrating. Okay. So the Blood Angels are going to get to swing back. So Swarmlord's going to have to take a quite a big hit here. Swing for 3, and we've got a Spore Burst to stop it, so that's 2 shields. That's good. Just taking the 1 damage onto the Swarmlord this time. Alright, and I'm assuming we're done, and we're going to ready, and Swarmlord's going to stay, try and finish off that Blood Angel, trigger that Yavin. As I was sort of halfway through saying, I'm sure he's got something quite big. Maybe he's got a Mitch or something in there, a decent size unit that's probably going to benefit from some sort of a hive mind-ish element or effect or something like that. And Dan stays as well, which instantly makes you go, oh no, when you're like, this should be a battle that I can win, and they stay. It's so disheartening. You just go, oh great, now I've got to go through with this. So we swing with Swarmlord, and so he stayed, so he must have something to keep him alive, surely. Yes, he does, and it's another Iron Halo, 2 of the things. Great, good to see, great, good for you, Dan. I can just imagine Toad's just kicking the wall at that point, just doesn't want to see that. And so the vets swing back on Swarmlord, who's already had to shield 2. Is he out for the count? What do we get? We get it clogged with corpses. If he'd have managed to build up more of a termagant swarm snowball, he would have been able to drop that crypt, which he would have been very, very pleased to do, I'm sure. But he just didn't have the tokens built up. So we take 2 more points of damage. So from 2 swings of the Blood Angels veteran, we've got 3 damages gone through. They both stayed again. Terrifying when he stays again with those veterans. And then the Swarmlord swings. Indomitable move to the table. And I'm going to ask about this in a second because I'm not paying attention. The Swarmlord attacks for 2. The ready Blood Angel drops it to 1. And the Indomitable shields that 1. And that's all it is. That's as much as Dan needs to do to survive and swing back for 3. And then there was another little disconnect, so Toad's just confirming 3 at the Swarmlord. Yes, indeed it is. And Swarmlord is bloodied. Things are looking pretty grim. Pretty rough. So Dan's done, Toad's done. No trigger of Yvonne at this point. Yeah, no trigger. We've got the crypt to get our units into play without paying for them. You know, it's considered, you know, not the best. You know, you clog your hand up with a unique that you can't use. You might not have things that work, and it just seems to pay off. Well, maybe not pay off, but be quite intimidating. Toad just commenting that there's a local New Zealand internet provider that's not got the greatest reputation, but apparently the flat he just moved into uses it. So that could explain why there's been umpteen disconnects extending the timing of this game. So HQ phase, we rotate through, we get all our cards and resources and bits and pieces. Swarmlord is bloodied, but it's his first move. We're all shuffling into position. It's looking pretty rough. This next planet is a win condition for Dan, but so is the next planet and the next planet. He's got an area of effect unit on the first planet, as well as a librarian hitting for 4 that you can't swing at until all the other units are gone. Swarmlord's bloodied. He's got a 1-cost 1-for-1 that has no bonuses because there's no infestation on the planet. Seems doubtful whether infesting that planet's even going to be worth it, because the area of effect could do quite a bit of damage, but the librarian could kill it off straight away. Just so nasty. And at this point, actually, it's a bit like the Space Marines have begun to outswarm the Swarmlord in this particular game. You know, Swarmlord, Miserable Toad, he's running pretty even for the actual command, but the difference provided by that crypt just seems to pay off. Seems to be worthwhile. Okay, Toad's gone. Blast the consequences. He's just burned all his resources. Biovore launcher on the first planet. It's a big chunky hive mind unit. It's not going to be able to do much other than be a big chunky unit. Dan's throwing down another Flamer squad. So that's given us, what, 3 cards and 14 resources worth out of 8 resources and 2 cards. Definitely getting a profit in this round. Pays for a Sicarius is chosen. Pulls the Biovore off the win condition planet. Oh, just... you hate to see it. I mean... that was probably Toad's smallest possible slim chance of maybe I can smack around a bit and possibly do something. And it's just pulled away from him. So, set our Warlord dials. Swarmlord has to go to 1 because otherwise Dan wins automatically, but if Swarmlord gets killed at 1, Dan wins automatically. Dan goes to 1 to back up his fighters there, and Toad wins, what is that, 1 card, while Dan wins all the remaining command. So the discrepancy's built up a bit by that point, unfortunately for Toad. Yeah, there we go. Dan gets his command, and we should be rolling on to the combat phase. Just moving quickly through. No actions, nothing going on. Here we are, Aatrox Prime, no actions again. And going to drop pod something in, I mean. No. Swarmlord goes for Cato, wanting to do a bit of a challenge there. Warlord versus Warlord. Mano a buggo. And he gets some damage through. But that's an exhausted, bloodied Warlord at a win condition planet for the opponent. This is looking pretty done. Okay, we get area effect. takes out that Hellgaunt and puts damage on the Swarmlord. I mean, I suppose Toad could have shielded the Hellgaunt. He's got quite a few cards. He possibly could have. Or shielded Swarmlord, maybe? Is it just prolonging the inevitable, though? Honoured Librarian swings and... Yimgarl defends for 2. So, Swarmlord's still alive, still in it, still hanging out. Alright, then we have... the Flamer Squad swinging directly at the Swarmlord. I believe they have an attack of 2. I believe it is. I'm not 100% sure. Indescribable Horror as a shield. Adds damage. Yep, so they must have had an attack of 2. Swarmlord still hanging in. Still here. We're like making this last. Oh, there he goes. Cato deals the killing blow, the last piece of the puzzle. And there you go. Black Crusade, Winter 2017, Miserable Toad as Swarmlord, facing Dan Napolitano as Cato Sicarius, and Dan takes the day. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you're following the Black Crusade League, and along with Conquest, I guess. Catch you again real soon.